Oliver Wendell Holmes is famously quoted as saying, "Some people are so heavenly minded that they are no earthly good." Is that true? Well, apparently in my life, it has proven to be true. I'm going to be sharing on this podcast a little bit of my journey about, I guess, over-rotating on God. You have to stay tuned to hear about it. Welcome to the Kindling Fire. My name is Troy Mangum. God is preaching a sermon to the world through people's lives. People's experience, history, and testimonies all point to some amazing attribute of God that you too can experience. I interview revolutionaries, fire starters, and troublemakers. This podcast is here to be a voice of encouragement in your life. A voice that says, with God you can, and with God you will step into the abundant life. So let's get rolling. Hey everybody, it's been a little bit since I've done a show, so welcome back. And if you're new, welcome to Kindling Fire. So one of the things I want to come right out of the gate and say is I am a grandpa. That's right, I'm a grandpa. My oldest daughter and son-in-law, Rain and Trent, has had our first grandchild. His name is Koda, which stands for bear in the Dakota Sioux language. And it also means ally or friend. So I like to call him Little Bear. And just so excited. The baby's healthy. They're healthy. That's happened within the last couple weeks. And it's just a major, major event for the Mangum family. And we are just couldn't be happier. And funny little story. I thought I was, my wife's going to be called Grandcat. Her name is Kathy. Her nickname is Cat. And I thought I would be clever, and I'd be like, well, I'm going to be like Papa T. So it'd be like Papa T and Grandcat. Well, as soon as I held Koda, I said, screw that, I'm Grandpa. And I had a really special grandpa in my life. And even though it sounds super old, I don't really care. So that's kind of how that goes. And so, yeah, I'm Grandpa, and Koda is just such a wonderful gift to the Mangums and the Begans, Koda Begans specifically, to Rain and Trent. And man, couldn't be happier. So as I said in the intro, that great quote, some people are so heavenly minded that they're no earthly good. Can that be true? Well, man, I'm going to tell you, right now, based on kind of where I am in my life and, I'm always on this quest with God, trying to learn more, grow closer, kind of find out that narrow path. And, maybe I over-rotated. And so I'm going to be talking a little bit about that and how I got to this point. And it's a little bit weird. Sometimes I come on shows and I really have an idea of what I want to do, and I want to offer you guys something or have a great conversation with somebody. And this one feels a little bit more vulnerable because I kind of don't know where this is going to go. But I'm a couple weeks into it. I thought I'd share the journey with you. And what are we talking about? What journey? So let's get started with this. So, recently I've been doing a lot of shows on Christian meditative prayer, having psychologists on and really, kind of digging deep into, the voice of God and prayer practices and all the things that, can kind of really settle a man into a routine with God that is going to benefit them and then they were going to grow. And I don't know if I'm maybe different from other men, but I feel like I tend towards more of the contemplative and introspective side and kind of really dialed into my emotions and all that stuff. And, then maybe the average guy, out there that's just like, yeah, whatever. I just, I'm doing the deal and try to integrate God somehow, whereas I'm like, kind of digging deep wells in this space. And I thought it was the right thing to do. In fact, since really 2020, I've been cultivating this devotional practice, and really I cultivate it to such a degree that I would spend roughly 1 to 3 hours a day in the morning, somewhere between 5 and 8, 6 and 9, in prayer, reading, specifically Streams in the Devotional and or Jesus Calling Devotional, reading one or more chapters in the Bible, quote, asking God to give me a chapter to read, and then studying that chapter. I was introduced to the Cageless Birds and that whole ministry. What do they call? Something for the Heart. Well, anyway, Place for the Heart. Ken and Linda Helser, and they got introduced to this idea of like journaling the voice of God, and I used a feeling wheel to really identify how I was feeling, and then giving, praying that out, and then giving God an opportunity to kind of speak to those feelings. I use the Pause app. You guys have heard that quite a bit about, sort of like this meditative practice of benevolent detachment, I think Elders calls it, and this idea that you're just letting go of everything. You're just really just letting everything go and sort of emptying yourself, if you will, which sounds very Buddhist, but that's kind of what you kind of do in that practice. And then I just would be journaling, working out my thoughts and things I was learning in the Bible or how I was feeling. So let me tell you, so that just sounds, super spiritual. Well, what was I not doing? You don't spend 1 to 3 hours in the morning doing that what was I not doing? Was not exercising. I've been trying to write a second book. I was not writing. Was not interacting with my wife in the morning. I wasn't really doing anything with the kids. We have 2 dogs now. I wasn't doing anything to help with the dogs. I wasn't doing the dishes. I was very much heavenly minded. And what started to happen is this started to really create contention, a bone of contention with my wife and I, because she's just like, what are you doing up there, for so long? And the fruit of it, well, let's talk about the fruit of it for a minute. So, I follow a couple people. I really respect their voice. I respect their experience. I express their process. And one of those people is Erwin McManus. And I was listening to one of their podcasts recently about them changing the name and justifying it, that they'll probably call it the McManus podcast or whatever. And that's neither here nor there. But there was this really powerful moment in the conversation with him and his son where he talked about ayahuasca and doing hallucinogens as well as being charismatic. And he basically likened them together. And, I'm like super charismatic. I love experiences, love prophecy, or I did. I'll get into that in a minute. Love the supernatural, love the quote experience. And, I came to, if you read my book, that I came to Christ through LSD and through a hallucinogenic experience is actually how I came to faith. So anyway, he talks about enveloping yourself in a spiritual experience, be it ayahuasca with drugs, a kind of a counterfeit, or be it charismatics in some sort of powerful meeting or some sort of like prophetic word or something like that. And he said, when you lose the mastery of your will in those experiences, you lose the power to choose. You lose the agency of choice, which is a divine thing that God has given us. And I think one of the things that I was starting to, again, it's early stage, but what I'm seeing is that I was in my quote quiet times. And again, I grew up with Campus Crusade for Christ, a crew. Quiet times are fundamental, right? Pray, read the Bible, pray through the list of people, pray for the lost, pray for your family, pray for all these things. Do it in a devotional way, do it in a concentrated way, do it secret. Now, and again, the Bible talks about going to your prayer closet and shutting the door and stuff. So I'm working this out, and I mean, certainly loved. Well, you haven't heard you haven't heard my kind of where I'm at now. So let me keep going. One of the ways that you change is not experience, be it charismatic and or ayahuasca or with hallucinogens. It's not experiences that change you. It's only choices. And experiences give you an opportunity to change, The choices are the real thing that changes you. So if that sounds amazing, credit Erwin McManus, such a great thinker and processor of life and what's going on in the gospel and everything like that. And man, I tell you what, here's the thing that I was starting to see personally. Well, first off, the fruit, when I talked about all the things that we're not doing, well, when I quote, I don't even know how to put it, when I live in a bubble of my head, in a spiritual bubble, and I don't interact with my wife or my kids or the dogs or the house or the dishes or whatever, like, am I truly being spiritual? Now, I may feel the experience of being spiritual, but is actually, am I? James is very much, quoted as saying, I'll show you my faith by what I do. And I was kind of showing, and I was doing nothing. But I was praying a lot, and I was reading the Bible a lot, and I was hearing the voice of God a lot, and I was doing all the things, and I was kind of having an experience, or I'd feel like I'd have an experience. Of course, I was drinking coffee, so that could have fueled that. But so that was sort of the my interpersonal world, and the things that I'm responsible for and accountable for. I was just kind of let go, and so I just kind of go from that meditative state into a job that I just I don't want to get in my job, but it's not super fun. So one of the things that I started to notice internally, now I've been doing this for well over 3 years, is a massive insecurity and a massive self-doubt and a loss of an ability to know how to make any decisions without, quote, checking in with God to discern his voice or direction. You know what that ended up, the other fruit of this practice that I was doing? I became a shell of myself. I deconstructed my personality down to such a degree to where I was literally like insecure about, this is overstated, but insecure about what shoes I was going to wear or like what direction I was going to go hour to hour, checking in with the God hour to hour. And so, yeah. So I called this podcast, Looking for God in the External World. So in the last few weeks, I have pretty much stopped all Bible study. I have stopped quiet times. I have stopped desiring to hear the voice of God. Right now, I don't want to hear the voice of God. I've stopped long praying. I've stopped this hours of meditation in the morning. I've stopped using the pause app. I've stopped quiet times altogether, and I've stopped journaling. Oh, that sounds like it's a dangerous place. Maybe. Why? Why did I make this decision? Again, I've talked about this being a bone of contention with my wife and I because she lives with me. She lives day in, day out with me. And she was just like, what is going on? Something is not right. And so we got into this massive disagreement. And at the end of it, I came to this realization. It's like, this isn't working. Like, I've literally been doing this for years. I feel like I've deconstructed my personality. I don't even know what the hell I'm doing anymore. I don't know what direction to go. I'm always seeking spiritual interactions with God to know of the simplest things. And honestly, it made me excessively angry. And I said, you know what? I'm done. I'm done with this. And so what did I do? I decided that I would go work out. So I don't pray anymore in the morning. I go work out. Now, in this process with me and God, I'm good with God. God's, I think, good with me. I love him. He loves me. But somehow, the way that I interacted with God had kind of screwed up I don't know. Certainly, I got so enveloped in the experience that I lost the agency of my will. Like, I stopped having the ability to make decisions. And so everything, even though I sounded super spiritual and probably have through the years, whatever, I pat myself on the back. That's, maybe I'll edit that part out. The fruit of it was I became somebody that could not function. Function in my family, function at work. I just, honestly, I am in counseling. I am in therapy through this last year. Probably want to talk to my counselor about it, but it's just like something was awry in this 1 to 3 hours of time that I was spending, quote unquote, with God and quote unquote hearing the voice of God, which quote unquote I may not been, to be quite honest. Well, here's the thing that sealed the deal for me. So I made the decision, screw this. Honestly, just screw it. I'm gonna go work out. I'm gained weight. I'm exhausted all the time. I'm completely insecure in my personality. I've lost all self-confidence. I've lost confidence altogether. I'm constantly checking in with God. I am a freaking wreck. And I'm angry about it, and I'm done with it. Now, again, me and God are good. I think that we have a strong enough relationship to where if I want to be distant for a while, we're good. I don't feel like I'm on, oh no, some awful things are going to happen. Nope. I'm working it out. He and I are working it out. And right now, I'm not interested in doing what I used to do because the fruit of it sucked. All right. Here's the thing that sealed the deal. So right after I made this decision, and I just said, I'm just going to go work out in the morning and whatever. I was listening to an audiobook, Screwtape Letters, and this really sealed the deal. So the very first temptation, so the concept of Screwtape Letters is there's an elder demon and a junior demon, and they have a guy in their sights that they're tempting and trying to sway and trying to win over to Satan and win away from God. And, that's the whole concept. Well, this guy in the book has a elderly mother who is sick and needs taken care, and there's some tensions between that guy and the mom, and C.S. Lewis is so brilliant. My gosh, if I could ever write even in like 1% of how well he writes, man, would I be a happy man. But anyway, so I'm listening to the audio version of this book, and then this is what he's talking about. Basically, the main character, I think, is Wormwood or Screwtape, I can't remember. But the senior devil is giving the junior devil some advice, and he's saying, hey, in this relationship between him and his mom that already is kind of fraught with a little bit of tension, do this. And so I'm just going to read it right out of the book. It says, continue daily pinpricks and daily annoyances between him and his mother. The following methods are very useful. Number 1, keep his mind on the inner life. He thinks his conversion is inside him, so his chief attention is at present turned to his own mind. Encourage this. I'll just reiterate, encourage this inward turning into his own thoughts and minds and feelings and calling it spiritual. Now back to the book. Keep his mind off of the most basic elementary duties and on the most advanced and spiritual duties. Aggravate the human characteristic of the neglect of the obvious. Bring him to a condition where he can practice self-examination for an hour without discovering any of those facts about himself that are so perfectly clear to anyone that has ever lived in the same house with him or has worked with him. Chapter 3, Screwtape Letters. This is the very first temptation he says to do. Man, when I read that, I was like, it just made me even more angry because this is my life, right? So as I spend 1 to 3 hours in self-reflection and in intention to God and in all these things, the obvious that is very obvious to my wife and my children who live with me, I am completely missing. And then the idea of keep his mind off of most basic elementary duties, doing the dishes, mowing the grass, taking care of the house, walking the dogs, all the things of life that I just was in this bubble in my heart and my head just constantly. Now, I call this podcast Evidence Looking for God in the External World. I basically came up in my mind and said, I'm done. I'm done hearing from God. I'm done feeling experiential experiences. I am for now, and I am looking for God in the external world. I want to see evidence of God completely outside of my bubble, outside of my thoughts and outside of my emotions. Basically, that's what I was looking for. So I'm going to give you 5 evidences that I've seen since I've started this in the last few weeks. Number 1, my mom got put into the hospital. She had she got sick. That's actually quite a big deal because she is the elder caregiver of my elder father, who has is digressing mentally to the point where he needs a lot of care and a lot of oversight and somebody constantly with him. And so she got sick. And so while we're in the hospital, she's just being Miss Chatty, and she got better and it was all fine. But in the hospital, she was like, you know what, I'm going to pray to God that I get out of this hospital. And the way things were going circumstantially, I was like, you know what, that's not going to happen. And so I basically told her that. I said, don't get your hopes up. That's not going to happen. It's late in the day. The doctors do this and that and the other, and you're not going to get a break. And she's like, well, I'm going to pray, and I'm going to have my friends pray. And so guess what? Her prayers got answered. And as far as I was concerned, I was like, that ain't going to happen. Like, I had no faith for that, and I'm not praying that. Well, that was evidence for me. I was like, okay, well, God answered her prayer, even though I was completely out of faith. Here's another one. I have transitioned in the last, I think I've mentioned this, but I've transitioned to be the president of Caleb Would Go, which is a mission sending organization, and we do missions fundraisers through surf contest and skateboard contest and art contest and this great event. We raise all this money and we give it up to radical people like Caleb Bell, who passed away, who was a missionary friend of mine when we were missionaries with YWAM. Anyway, if you want to hear more about that, there's a show called Introduction to Caleb Would Go, and you hear all about it. And we actually have a new event, another event called Shakanar, happening in June, so maybe you'll hear about that in future podcasts. All right, side note. So we applied for nonprofit status with the federal government. They told us it would take 6 months. Now, our event's in June, and we don't have 6 months, and we want donors and all this other stuff. Well, the short of it is the federal government came back and gave us our 501(c)(3) within 2 weeks. That is a freaking miracle. When they told us it would take 6 months and the federal government does something in 2 weeks, you know it's God. So that's another evidence. Another evidence is that when my wife was waiting for the baby to be born down with my daughter down in Florida, my daughter lives in an apartment, and they have like a little waterway that runs in front of it. Well, basically, one of the long-standing things about my wife is that she has a relationship with otters. I can't explain it. She's a bit of a Mrs. Doolittle, but the short of it is she loves otters. Otters are very special to her, and so anyway, so she's just sitting down there, and a literal otter comes and swims right in front of her out on the balcony. My son-in-law and my daughter have never seen an otter before in their life, and I'm like, oh my gosh, God loves my wife. There's a freaking otter swimming in front of her, playing around and doing all its otter business. So that was to me like, okay, that's evidence of God. Rain's baby pregnancy and delivery was freaking perfect. Koda came. It couldn't have been more perfect. No complications, no sad stories. It was just blessed end to end. It happened according to prayer right before my wife left and all this stuff. And I had nothing to do with that. I didn't apply any faith to that. And it just happened. Another evidence. Last thing I'll say from evidence of looking for God in the external world is robins. One of the things that American robins, actually the little bird. So one of the things that you may have read in my book is that I have a long history with God and robins. I'll give you the really quick in it from the book. Is basically I grew up in an extremely physically abusive house. When my father would start raging against my mom, it was just constantly terror and turmoil. And I would leave the house. And I would go leave the house, and I would go into the front yard when I was a young boy. and I would like kick the soccer ball around or whatever, but I was just trying to get away from him and get away from the horror that was inside of the home and my home in general. And these little robins would always come and hang out with me while I was playing soccer, and I would always feel very peaceful. Well, fast forward until I get saved. So that was probably 7, 8, 9 kind of years old. Fast forward when I get saved at 19, I'm learning how to, quote, have a quiet time, which I guess I'm talking about leaving now. But anyway, I was learning how to read the Bible and pray as a 19-year-old. And I would sit and do that by a tree out in the woods. And a robin, an American robin, would always sit on a branch next to me. American robin showed up when we decided that we were going to, when I finally made the decision that I would quit my job, put everything at risk, our kids' college, our house, our money, everything, quit everything and go become missionaries with Youth with a Mission. A little robin was sitting right in front of the tree when I made that final decision. So guess what? So in this last 3 weeks when I've been like, God, I don't want to talk to you anymore, and I don't want to hear from you, but yeah, that's how it's been. I've been seeing robins everywhere, and I'm just like, okay, I get you. So where have I landed right now? I basically landed that I will listen to the Bible, listen a couple chapters of the Bible on my way back from the gym. I'm not studying it. I'm not seeking God's voice about it. I didn't seek His voice about what to read. I'm just reading the Bible, and yeah, it's good. And so the last thing I'll say about all this is that so there's kind of like, I'm just going to say it. There's two camps of Christianity. There's sort of the principle camp. I'm intelligent. I can read the Bible. If it says go left, I go left. And I don't need the voice of God, and I don't need a prophecy, and I don't need an experience. I can just take my will, apply it to God's word, and do the thing. And, there's many denominations that kind of do this. Then there's the, mostly my world, this Holy Spirit world, right? Which is sort of like, it looked like, me asking God where to read the Bible instead of just making a decision where to read the Bible. It looked like hoping and just waiting that some, charismatic fortune teller would bump into me and say, "Thus saith the Lord, here's all this clarity you want and some great reward you're going to get," and blah, blah, blah. And so or I was at this, at this worship event, and I was having this moment and I was crying. And then God said to me, "Thus, Troy, go somewhere." Like, I've looked for that all my life, right? So these are two camps, and I've definitely been in the, looking for experience camp. But the thing that is so atrophied in my life is I have agency of will. I have the ability to make choices that could lead to change in my life. I have the Bible and the principles that are shown in the Bible. And I'm kind of like, why don't I just practice doing that and stop looking for experiences? Sure. Am I over rotating? Probably. Am I maybe in a dangerous place with God? Yeah, maybe. So that's what's up. So that's where I'm at. I've always tried to be honest with you guys. This is about as raw and honest as I can get on this, telling you that me and God are on the outs, but we're not really. I mean, I love Him. He loves me. But man, like, I'm working it out right now. And that's the truth. So, yeah, I don't know. I just thought I'd share that with you. You want to have any interaction with this? You ever felt this way before? You ever got to this point before? You can reach out to me on Instagram, Troy__Mangum, or just search the Kindling Fire, and I'll interact with you if you want to have that chat. And I think that's out. I think I'm done. And so, as always, be awesome. Appreciate you guys. Thank you for coming along the journey. And I'll let you know how this goes. Hey guys, thanks for listening to the podcast. Hey, if you did like it, it would be really helpful if you want to send us a review over on iTunes. That would be really cool. And if you want to connect, go over to Instagram, search Troy Mangum or the Kindling Fire, and we can connect there, and that would be a great way to kind of stay in touch. I am doing a YouTube channel, so we do video formats of these podcasts, and we'd love to have you look there. Okay, guys, until next time, be awesome.